giving an update on my garden. My last update was 1 month ago, basically on the dot. As you can see, things have exploded. It is the start of August, and the garden is now overrun with both weeds and things we've planted. If you come into the main entrance of the garden and look up, you can see that my morning glories predictably took over this whole side, and I have been trimming them back, believe it or not, but you can see that there's been many blooms and many seed pods. And if you do not want these things growing everywhere in your yard, do not plant them, but I already have them growing wild everywhere in my yard anyway, so it's whatever. Beside me here is my bottle squash and Armenian cucumbers. I think in the last video I talked about how the Armenian cucumbers and bottle squash hadn't really outproduced the more traditional varieties that I had planted, but I can confidently say that I was definitely wrong about that. The Armenian cucumbers, if you look above you, there's a couple here. I'm letting these two go to seed just so I have some for next year. But you can see there's two here, two more of them, little ones right here that I'll probably harvest. Another one that's close to done. That'll grow probably by tomorrow and be ready. They have exploded onto the scene. My regular cucumbers produced a lot earlier in the season, even though they were all planted at the same time. And they still are producing, and they've been very good. The Armenian cucumbers, though, are, I think, superior in every respect. They seem to produce more, and they taste better. Their skin does not have that like bitter taste that regular cucumbers have. My quail enjoy eating them too whenever they do get too big. Same thing for the bottle squash. Come in here, Abby. I've left this one on. This one is a bit mature, and I'm leaving it so that I can collect the seeds out of it. You can see it kind of looks more like a winter squash now. But I've harvested, what would you say, like 15, 20 squash off of this?
Probably.
Yeah. Whereas with my regular squash, even though I've planted more of them, I probably got, a little bit less than that. And I'm still getting bottle squash that are producing. Here's a young one right here, and they climb so readily over. This one has actually made it all the way over and now is coming back up on the other side. So they have really filled in this whole area. My beans, I think I talked about them, my mosaic beans, they've produced a little bit more. They still have not come close to producing like the common beans have. There's actually one up here. It's ready to be picked. But if you look, there are just hundreds of beans up here, and I planted those in the tube sort of as an afterthought, and they seem to have really relished growing in this environment. Having something to grow straight vertical up has really helped them. I've been trying to stay on top of weeding too, so that might have helped. Yeah. There is a little bit of an issue. This garden, I did not use the proper cattle panel like I talked about in the last video, but these are getting weighed down by the bottle squash. They don't seem like they're gonna fall down, but they are heavily weighing down. If you turn around, Abby, we walk this way a little bit. This half of the garden is, I'm kind of suffering from success on this side of the garden. Right here where all my puny peppers were in the previous video, you can see they are no longer puny. They're growing very straight. I think that's because they're planted too close together. So they're competing with each other for light, but I kind of like the taller look, and the amount of density here has suppressed like any possible weeds from growing right here. And you can see they're flowering now, and I'm starting to get some peppers, but it's still a little early for them. Behind you here,
shift around.
Kind of hard to move over here. This used to be a very clear path, but I guess I'm learning that tomatillos, which I had very low expectations for, I kind of assumed they were a bit more of a tropical plant, or something that wouldn't really do good in the little bit colder climate here. We're in zone 7, but kind of on the northern border of zone 7. But no, the exact opposite actually. They seem to love it, and they're incredibly vegetative. You can see they've taken over, spilled out all into the middle of the path. I had to walk around now, and I would trim them, but you know, I'm kind of curious just to see how they do, and I'll cut them back after we get a good many tomatillos. But same thing with the wildflowers. They've spilled over as well, but you know, that wouldn't be such a big deal right here, Abby. That wouldn't be such a big deal if the tomatillos weren't also all the way across the yard.
Yeah.
A couple had fallen off there too, but I don't think we're gonna have to worry about it.
There.
Let's walk around to the other side, Abby. This stuff right here. My strawberries are doing extremely well. The plants are. They haven't produced much since that first little flush they had. I've been getting one or two here. That could just be it's so dense now with strawberries that I cannot see most of them, which I'm fine with. They're doing pretty well though. The raspberry vine that I had planted, it's still the same as it was, where it's just the one alive. The other smaller one hasn't really done much, but this one is vegetated like crazy, and I'm guessing this is probably like a second year producing cane, or whatever the correct terminology is, because there's been no flowers on this. So I'm thinking next year, whenever this sends canes off the sides, those will be what produce a lot. So I guess I'll let them flower, and then after they flower, trim it back to how it is right now, so that hopefully every year I can get a good harvest. These are my elderberries. They're a native berry. They've already produced a little bit, but I actually didn't plant these here. They've just kind of spread out from wild elderberries, and whenever I'm mowing my grass, I'm keeping an eye out for anything that I like these elderberries, and I've left them to grow here. So that's one advantage to paying attention when you cut your grass, is you get free bushes, you know. And I was at Lowe's about a month ago, and they were selling elderberries for like $10 for a little dead stick. But it's like, if you just watch where you're mowing, you'll get free elderberries.
Another view of the tomatillos.
My lettuce, this is kind of on its last leg now. I'm letting a few of them flower to collect a few seeds for next year. Had a lot of success with the lettuce. I was able to harvest probably 5 or 6 times. I know in the video that I based this garden off of, she talks about, you know, the lettuce sort of coming into, you know, maturity at the same time that they're being shaded over, and that providing protection. I think she recommended putting them over there, but I had similar success over on this side of the garden with, you know, all the shade produced by the tomatillos, and I've harvested most of the lettuce. I got several harvests off of this freckled lettuce here, and it was very good. We cooked with it several times, and honestly, that was probably one of the bigger money savers from the garden, was this little tray of lettuce. So probably gonna plant a lot more of that next year. All right, we come on to the other side, and this is why you buy cages for your tomatoes. Not that these aren't producing well and don't look healthy enough, but they are gone hog wild over here, which is good, but it would be a little bit neater if I had bought cages for them. I honestly thought most of them were going to die. When I first transplanted them from the greenhouse, they looked as though they were dying, and they looked that way for about a month before they just had started to recover in my first video. And then the past month they've exploded in size, and we've harvested, you know, half dozen tomatoes or so, but there's more to come. Back in the corner over here, more peppers doing the same. You can't even see the hazelnut. You can see a little bit of one sticking up, and they've started to take off a little bit as well. But after fall sets in, I'll come back and trim all these other plants back and help out my hazelnuts a little bit. You can see this bottle swiss. The roots for this bottle swiss are all the way on the other side of this trellis here, so it has come all the way down, and it is still producing like new fruit. So that an absolutely super prolific plant, a great tasting plant too. It's really impressive. It almost has more of a vegetable taste than normal squash. More of like a you know, green tomato taste or a cucumber taste, especially in the neck. and it's kind of a double crop because the next is more of that cucumber taste, which I like, and I've been eating it raw actually, and it's tasted extremely well. And then this bottom half here has got that more green tomato taste, more like a traditional squash.
Are we gonna
So-
get any more pumpkins?
I don't know. I don't think so, to be honest. It seemed like both pumpkin plants. We had 2 of them planted, and we also had 1 winter squash or butternut squash. And it seemed like each one of them put a whole lot of work into making these small, not very impressive squash, and then they died. So, it seemed like that's probably all we're gonna get. Granted, those do have a more unique flavor, and you can make pie out of them. So we will plant some more of those next year, but they were not able to keep up with the bottled squash. Around the outside here, I planted a few beans here, and I actually didn't know what type of beans these were when I planted. They were just something I had in my seed drawer, and it looks like they're bush beans. I was kind of hoping they would be pole beans so they could grow up this side, but that's okay. So a few bush beans here, and I was just trying to fill in this blank area over here. Wild radish growing right here, probably a descendant from one I've planted, several years ago that's just been reseeding itself in my yard. The kale is also doing extremely well. I actually looked up what type of kale this was before. You have a mosquito on you.
Thank you.
But I actually looked up what type of kale this is before coming out here a little bit earlier, but I forgot what it was already. So if anybody knows, tell me in the comments. I'm sure Ryan will tell me. The big takeaway from this garden, though, that I've learned from now since the last video I made is definitely get the cattle panel, because these squash and cucumbers really put a lot of weight on this thinner panel, and it is able to handle it, but it would be a lot better and a lot easier, as well as the squares being larger in each one of these. I've had issues with the bottle squash and the cucumbers too, where they kind of get stuck in the middle, and when you have to pull them out, you end up scraping them, and then obviously if you pull their skin off, they're not going to last as long. I'm definitely going to change what things I plant, but her variety recommendations in the video were pretty excellent. The Armenian cucumbers and the bottle squash, or what's their actual name? The Trumbocino, Trumbochino, maybe. I don't know. I've been calling them bottle squash. I'm sure that's not right. Trombone, maybe.
You've been calling them trombone squash.
Okay, but either way, that's an excellent variety. They were pretty cheap too off of Etsy. They're really impressive too to give to people. If you give them to your neighbors or coworkers, they'll think you're some sort of green thumb master. Pretty impressive little garden plan here, and I'm real happy with it.
Insert picture of Granny wearing the trombone squash around her neck.
Yeah, this garden, it's a big help.
Wait, can you start your outro again? I slipped on that mud and the camera
Oh.
I'm sorry.
The,
This is my bad.